what was the secret space program? What is it? What will it be? I can tell you that I was being groomed in childhood. I was being educated in time travel so that I could go to the Naval Academy and continue to time travel in adulthood. Now, I ended up being placed in the Mars Jump Room program anyway during my undergraduate years at UCLA. So now, what is it? It's been 37 years since I was trained in the summer of 1980 to go to Mars via jump room. When I look back and take stock of anything in my childhood that related to Mars, here's what I found. First of all, I found 5 foreshadowings that indicated that Project Pegasus, and indeed my father and the principals on it, knew that some of the children who were time traveling for DARPA in the early 70s would be going to Mars in adulthood. As it turned out, it was in our young adulthood. So we meet Aldrin there at the campgrounds the day before we're put in Mars jump room training. That night, around the campfire, my dad explained, basically clarified what Buzz was referring to by stating that we were going to be entering an academic program the next day involving everything to do with Mars. And when I said, why, Dad? I mean, I don't want to become an astronaut. I've already completed my astronomy breadth requirement. He said, because some of you kids in the program are going to be going there. So we knew by Sunday night that we basically were being dropped into the secret space program. Major Ed Dames was then serving as a scientific and technical intelligence officer for the U.S. Army. So we meet our professor, and the program that we're being enrolled in is explained to us, that basically we're going to study for about 6 weeks everything from the creation of Mars to why the United States is there, and because some of us being trained are going to be going there. It was explained that the United States government was sending both settlers there and temporary visitors, and we had essentially pulled the more favorable card because we were just going to be temporary visitors there. Ed explained to us that there were 3 goals as to why we had established a secret Mars program, and they were to establish an extraterrestrial defense regime on planet Mars to protect Earth from all of the above, from asteroids, hostile ETs, mysterious events that might jeopardize our planetary civilization here on planet Earth. So there was a defense goal that we would be serving, that in order to implement that defense regime, there was an effort being made to potentially claim Mars as U.S. territory under public international law, which at least in the case of Antarctica was done by showing how your country had involved itself in a pattern of sending both temporary visitors and settlers to Antarctica. So the United States government was going to attempt the same territorial acquisition of Mars as U.S. territory, and that in service of that goal, we would be sent up there primarily to acclimate the Martian humanoids and animals to our presence. As Ed Dames joked, your goal basically is to go up there and be seen. And now, in consultation with 2 of my fellow jumpers, again, William Brett Stillings, and a defense community investigator who was somewhat older, who was dropped into our group of 5, as a threesome of whistleblowers. Again, we had a discussion at the panel. Evidence just doesn't include documents, it also includes testimony. Both testimony as to what witnesses saw and did, and documents where chain of custody have been proven, are valid forms of evidence. And they usually all can go into the body of evidence to be evaluated by the fact finders at a trial. So I'm providing, admittedly, testimonial evidence. And I have the right to give that evidence and have it be considered, testimony as to what I did or saw, have it be considered as direct evidence. Now, my testimony about the 5 people in the program we've been able to identify has been corroborated by William Stillings and Bernard Mendez. That's, of course, a hearsay allegation. We'd have to get them to testify to confirm that. But this has been backed up by 2 of my co-participants. The trainees, in addition to myself, included Regina Elvira Dugan, who had just completed or entered her first year at Caltech as a 16-year-old, and who on July 20th of 2009, the 40th anniversary of the lunar landing, was appointed by President Obama the 19th director of DARPA. In fact, the first woman to direct the very agency that gave the United States government its secret time travel capability. An Annapolis plebe that was in our training class, as I was supposed to have gone to Annapolis, this young man decided to go, was William Cameron McCool, who would later become a Navy test pilot and space shuttle pilot, and sadly lose his life on February 1st of 2003, piloting Space Shuttle Columbia as it re-entered Earth atmosphere and was incinerated. So Willie McCool was in our class. There was a very intelligent and funny and likable young man who was then attending Occidental College, who explained to me that his name was Barry Soetoro, who was also in our training class. Today we know him as President Barack Obama. So let me ask this very intelligent audience. If William Stillings and Bernard Mendez and I were telling a tall tale, if we were constructing a fable hoping to be believed, back in 2010 when we came public with this testimony, would we have included the sitting President of the United States as one of our fellow jumpers? I mean, please, it's a farcical, it's a silly idea. We never would have included Obama. I actually had arguments with Alfred Weber. Judge Weber was then advising us about what kind of truth movement to pursue. And we decided we would tell the truth about Obama's involvement because, guess what? He was one of our fellow jumpers. Now, I have great respect and affection for Richard Dolan, but you know, Richard has satirized my testimony as the Obama on Mars story. It's not. If anything, it's my own story of Bassiago on Mars. But in fact, I think it goes beyond my own participation. I'm trying to tell the story of the CIA's Mars Jump Room program as a component of the secret space program. And there is 999 North Sepulveda. Next one, please. Now, I took 2 training jumps. The first one took place in July of 1981, and the tradition was to always go up by yourself, because you basically had to confront your demons and go up by yourself, because we had to be expected to do that. So in July of 81, Courtney Hunt drove me in his silver, grayish-colored Volvo DL over to 999 North Sepulveda. We walked into the building. In those days, there weren't 3 huge red 999s on the street corner. There was a little sort of metal 999 on the awning of the building. I said, "Great, Courtney. You're setting me up to Mars where my feet are going to be on another planet, and the building is 666 upside down." And he laughed in one of those rueful, kind of bronchial, cynical coughs or laughs that only the cigarette-smoking guy from the CIA can laugh in. So then I just pretty much came out of this skull on the surface. The jump room opened, and we would stand in the jump rooms and wait until we were addressed by the intercom. And I was there for about 15 minutes, and I finally said, quoting Alan Shepard at Cape Canaveral in 1961, the year of my birth, I finally said, "Light this candle," because I was growing impatient just standing there. And I could hear Courtney laughing through the intercom. About 5 minutes later, the lights in the elevator began flashing, and it slowly began morphing from a box into a cylinder with wormholing at the end of the cylinder clockwise. And then about 5 more minutes later, it corrected itself and began unmorphing, and then righted itself after about 15 total minutes back into a box. And then about 5 minutes later, the door opened on the opposite side of the elevator. Now, as I stated just a few moments ago over in the panel, I rest my allegation that there is a secret space program today when Cheryl Jones asked us, what's your evidence, on the fact that I'm proud to have participated kind of as, I think, as the bridge personality in a sense between the initial 2 Mars Jump Room whistleblowers and then myself and 4 other individuals who've come forward. So who are those people? And why am I identifying them specifically to this audience? I am going over each of these people very briefly, but just to give them all credit, because it is my position stated today. In other words, I'm alleging that these 7 Mars whistleblowers are all truthful witnesses and whistleblowers. In other words, their testimony is truthful. It's veracious testimony.